Okay, so before I call this meeting into order, there's a few things I need to read. This board meeting is being live streamed for the convenience of the public at www.okaloosaschools.com. The public may participate in the public comment and/or public hearing portions of this meeting by either personal attendance or by calling the school board meeting public participation phone line. A separate seating area has been set aside for the press and public who are in attendance at the meeting in accordance with social distancing guidelines as provided by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. If calling into the meeting, you should call area code 850-833-3100. The phone lines will be operational beginning at 6 p.m. on the night of the board meeting, and callers will be transferred into the board meeting during the public comment portion and/or public hearing portion of the meeting only, in the order in which calls are received. If you are calling into the meeting to make public comment, please be patient as there may be a wait time while being transferred into the meeting. So with that being said, I call this meeting to order, and we're going to go down to item 2, approval of the agenda, and item 2.1, we have some changes. We have item 8.8, proposed school operational supporting staffing grid and school supplement grid. Discretionary budget for fiscal year 2020-2021 was moved to discussion agenda 10.2. Added item 8.14, emergency purchase CenturyLink for bandwidth increase at DJJ facility. This is an emergency purchase so that students at the DJJ will have access to better internet bandwidth during the district's online instruction. And discussion agenda added item 10.2, proposed school operational support staffing grid and school supplement grid, discretionary budget for fiscal year 2020 through 2021. I need a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Mr. Destin makes a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second. Lamar White.
Dr. White makes the second. Any discussion? Mr. Destin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. Ivanchek, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. Kelly?
Yes.
And Dr. White?
Yes.
And the motion carries 5-0. Going back to the opening of the meeting, I do have to recognize that the Honorable Linda Ivanchek, the Honorable Dr. Diane Kelly, and the Honorable Dr. Lamar White are participating via the telephone, which is in accordance to the governor's emergency orders as far as conducting school board meetings. So now we'll move to recognitions, and Mr. Superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Bryant. First of all, Victoria Orcutt. She's an amazing young lady from Fort Walton Beach High School, and actually comes from a line of Orcutts who seem to do very well both scholastically and athletically. And we are recognizing Victoria tonight for being Florida's female Wendy's High School Heisman winner. So you think about that, being a high school Heisman winner, and the recipient of the 2020 All Sports Association Female Scholastic Award. And I just want to read just a quick statement about Victoria. Victoria Orcutt has mastered success. Her impressive accolades as a multi-sport scholar athlete include competing and winning at the state and national levels while academically maintaining a 4.71 GPA. Highlights include setting 11 school and 4 district records in swimming, being named Northwest Florida's Swimmer of the Year in 2018, and representing the United States at the 2018 Modern Pentathlon Youth World Championships and the 2017 and 2018 Pan American Championships. While she is a determined competitor, she never forgets Albert Einstein's words of wisdom: strive not to be a success, but rather to be a value. And these are some of the things that her parents have really instilled in her, to be a value rather than to strive for success. So Victoria Orcutt, very, very well deserved, and we congratulate and recognize her today.
If I may add, Superintendent, if you were to look in the dictionary under excellence, character, you would find Victoria's picture. She has won so many awards that it took just amazing capability and character to win. So I'm very proud of her, and I might point out, try not to brag too much, but we've had several Heisman winners at Fort Walton Beach High School over the last few years. So
Yes, sir.
it seems to be running in their blood over there.
And to say that there's another Orcutt coming up the ranks too.
That is absolutely correct.
All right. All right, so we'll move down to visitors. We'll wait well, there's a 30-second delay, so we'll wait. Okay. And we have no visitors at this time. Administrative personnel appointments, none. Public comment. And this is where anybody could call in or come in person. So. Okay, so now we're going to move down to 7, which is committee and staff reports. That was workshop only. And now we're down to the consent agenda. I need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved, Chairman.
Mr. Destin makes the motion. I need a second, please.
I'll second.
Okay.
Diane Kelly.
Dr. Kelly makes a second. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. Mr. Destin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. Ivanchek, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. Kelly, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Dr. White, how do you vote?
Yes.
Okay, the motion carries 5-0. So now we'll move to item 9. And this is Superintendent's Human Resource Recommendations. School board members, just so you know, Dr. Hell is present in the other room, but if you need him, he is going to make his way in. So we'll start with item 9.1 and 9.2 are informational. So 9.3, employment separations. I need a motion to approve, please.
So moved.
Mr. Destin makes a motion. Dr. Kelly a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Destin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. Ivanchek, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. Kelly, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Dr. White, how do you vote?
Yes.
Okay, and that motion carries 5-0. 9.4, personnel recommendations. I need a motion to approve.
So moved,
I move
Chairman.
it.
I'll
Ms.
take the second.
Ms. Ivanchek will get the motion, and Mr. Destin will second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Destin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. Ivanchek, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. Kelly, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. White, how do you vote?
Yes.
Okay, that motion carries 5-0. 9.5 is employee suspension. I need a motion to approve.
So moved.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, so Mr. Destin won on that one, and I'll go with, I think I heard Ms. Ivanchek next. So Mr. Destin makes the motion to approve, Ms. Ivanchek second. Any discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Destin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. Ivanchek, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. Kelly, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Dr. White, how do you vote?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That motion carries 5-0. 9.6, reinstatement reimbursement of sick leave due to line of duty illness, injury, medical examination. I need a motion to approve, please.
So moved.
Mr. Destin makes a motion. Second.
I'll second it.
Second, Ms. Ivanchek. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. Mr. Destin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. Ivanchek, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. Kelly, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Dr. White, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. That motion carries 5-0. 9.7, leave without pay. I need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Mr. Destin makes the motion. I need a second, please.
I'll second.
Second, Dr. Kelly.
Diane Kelly.
Second, Dr. Kelly. Any discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Destin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. Ivanchek, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. Kelly, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Dr. White, how do you vote?
Yes.
Okay, that motion carries 5-0. We're going to move to discussion agenda, but also to remind that we do have a public hearing at 6:15. So we will go to item 10.1, charter school renewal contract between the School Board of Okaloosa County, Florida, and Liza Jackson Preparatory School Incorporated.
If we,
And-
Mr. Chair, if we could take that up with the public hearing, if you wouldn't mind moving on to 10.2, and then we could come back to 10.1.
Oh, yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. McGinnis, for reminding me of that. So did you hear that, board members? We're just going to move that to that's going to be part of the public comment, public hearing portion of the meeting. So now we'll go to 10.2, which was moved from consent agenda, proposed school operational support staffing grid and school supplement grid, discretionary budget for fiscal year 2020 through 2021. And Mr. Chambers, I believe you would like to make a comment to begin with.
No, I appreciate it. And I just want to start off by saying to the board, I very much appreciate the conversation that we had on Thursday. I know that it was brought up about, the times that we are in and making sure that, we are fiscally responsible. So I do want to just say a couple things, but I also want to thank the board members for the great comments that were made about the Baker AP position as well as the band positions, and I appreciate that support and very much appreciate the words of making sure that we're also fiscally responsible. And I did want to say that I assure to the board that we will have a balanced budget, and this is one of the many budgets that we do have in the school district that will come before you. But then two, this will also be a cost neutral venture as well. We've already been looking at other programs and where we can reorganize or restructure. We did that again after the board workshop on Thursday, and I commit to you here publicly that this will be a cost neutral situation, and you will have a balanced budget when this budget comes before you. But just once again, I think this is the great thing about this board. We look at all, make sure that we turn over all stones, and this is something that I appreciate.
Okay. So with that being said, I need a motion for approval of this proposed school operational support staffing grid. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll move that we approve the support and supplemental grid discretionary budget with a simple caveat that it be revenue neutral, which our superintendent has pledged to do.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Destin. Did y'all hear that, school board members that are on the phone?
Yes, and I'll second it.
Okay.
Yes.
Ms. Ivanchek makes the second. Any further discussion? Starting with Mr. Destin, any discussion?
No.
Okay. Ms. Ivanchek, any discussion?
Yes, I just want to briefly reiterate what I said a little bit on Thursday morning, that, and I believe actually Dr. White used the term of showing some equity in our high schools, and the superintendent pointed out that Baker is the 5th largest school in our district, and I've personally worked with the administration at Baker, and I think that this 10-month position is certainly warranted and is necessary at this time. And I know that we have a tough situation right now, but if we put this allocation in, we know that will give them some support up there. If for some reason with our current situation and the budget for the state of Florida for education changes, then we don't necessarily have to fill that position of AP. Since it's a 10-month, it's going to be not filled till later towards the fall anyway. So if something drastic happens or whatever to the budget, then we are not held to that, but there would just still be an allocation, and that's why I'm voting in favor of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ivanchek. Dr. Kelly, any comments?
Yes, I do have a couple of comments. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have given a great deal of thought and research to whether or not this is the appropriate time to add these particular positions. I've also spoken with our CFO numerous times, as well as with both the impacted band directors and the two other positions that are on here. And I'd just like to make a couple points for the public to know that several of these are indeed not administrative. Really, only one is. Many of them are only changing the funding source. They are not new positions. They're just funding source changes. And if we were to be the recipients of any tax revenues, we're not able to use those funds for these positions. They can only be used for capital projects. And this represents less than a tenth of 1% of our total budget of $400 million. So when you're looking at this entire package is much less than $200,000 and brings so much to the schools. And as I said, going back to my campaign days, I'll always see 4 things that help the students in the schools, and these expenditures are school expenditures. They're not district level expenditures. For all of those reasons, I just can't find a reason not to vote for these positions right now. And as we said, with the caveat that they would be budget neutral overall. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kelly. Dr. White?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The only remark I would have would be in reference to my remarks on Thursday during the workshop. And I think the motion as it's been made, and considering the superintendent's comments, I certainly will vote for this particular motion. Thank you.
Okay. Well, with that being said, Mr. Destin, how do you vote?
I'll vote yes.
Ms. Ivanchek, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. Kelly?
Yes.
And Dr. White, how do you vote?
Yes.
Okay, and the motion will carry 5-0. So if y'all would, please go down to 17.1, and we're going to move to public hearing for approval of the charter school renewal contract between the School Board of Okaloosa County, Florida, and Liza Jackson Preparatory School Incorporated. I need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Mr. Destin makes a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Ivanchek. I got you there. I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Oh, yeah, thank you. Is there anybody from the public that is here to speak on this particular item? Okay, hearing none. Mr. McInnes, would you like to, did you have a
Yes, sir.
comment?
No, sir. We went over in detail the charter on Thursday, and it's here tonight for your approval, subject to the public hearing, which you've now conducted.
Okay. Mr. Destin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. Ivanchek, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. Kelly, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. White, how do you vote?
Yes.
Okay. And that motion carries 5-0. So now we'll go down to construction program owners representatives business. And 11.1, program status report. Mr.
Yes,
Destin.
Chairman, as we spoke at the workshop, I provided the agenda from the meeting to the board, and we have 2 new items on here that we will vote on in just a moment.
Okay. Any comments for Mr. Destin or any questions? Ms. Ivanchek.
No, thank you.
Dr. Kelly.
No.
Dr. White.
No, thanks.
Okay, thank you. So we'll move down to 11.2, TPM program number 6, task order number 8, pre-GMP Kenwood Elementary kitchen dining roof replacement. I need a motion to approve this.
I move we approve 11.2.
Okay, Mr. Destin makes the motion. Who was that? Ms. Ivanchek?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Ms. Ivanchek makes the second. Any other discussion on this? Hearing none, Mr. Destin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. Ivanchek, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. Kelly, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. White, how do you vote?
Yes.
Okay, and the motion carries 5-0. So 11.3, program number 6, task order number 5, time and materials, task order, emergency remedial efforts, both design and construction for repairs to Joe Etheridge Stadium at Choctawhatchee High School. I need a motion to approve.
I'll move we approve.
I'll move it.
Mr. Destin makes the motion, and Ms. Evancheck, you'll get the second. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. Mr. Destin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. Evancheck, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. Kelly, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Dr. White, how do you vote?
Yes.
And that motion carries 5-0. Nothing on section 12, so we'll move to attorney's business. Mr. McInnes.
No report.
Thank you, sir. And now we'll move to 14, superintendent's business. Mr. Chambers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to give just a couple comments really quickly. As you know, as we've gone through this pandemic, there's been a lot of changes to public education. And I do want to say, just from the very beginning of this, when you start thinking about when decisions were made to close schools, when the decision was made to go to an online model, when the decision was made to keep schools closed throughout the remainder of the year, when decisions were made based on athletics or promotion, retention, even graduation, I do want to say, I, just like many of the superintendents across the state, we've had several superintendent conference calls and meetings. So these have been done virtually. So I appreciate the fact that there's been a lot of good discussion amongst superintendents throughout these meetings. We've also had several meetings with the Department of Education, and the Department of Education has given a lot of guidance along the way additionally. But I do want you all to know also, we do speak, just like you all probably speak with some board members across the state. I also speak with some superintendents across the state as well. So I just really appreciate the fact that for many things, a lot of the districts are on the same page. But as you can imagine, in certain situations, there's going to be things that we do differently, based on Okaloosa County. And I think graduation eventually will probably be one of those things where, what one district does could be different than another. But I just wanted to share that with you. So I do appreciate the communication, and I also appreciate the communication during this time with the board. And I know I've had conversations with each of you in different times. That means a lot when we can have these good conversations. And a lot of the conversations we've had with you all have helped us make good decisions. So I just appreciate that. The other point that I wanted to make, Dexter Day from Crestview High School, all of you know Principal Day. He came to me last week and he said, hey, what do you think about doing a Pledge of Allegiance every Monday at 8 o'clock? I thought that was a great idea. One, we're a military community. Two, we obviously love our country, and that's first and foremost. But it was also a way to bring the schools and the district departments together with our students and families. So this is something that's been put out across the district to families as well as our employees. So every Monday at 8 o'clock, feel free to step outside your house or where you are, and every Monday we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. And that was neat today. We actually came in here today. And the last thing I want to say, two pieces on HR. I think on Thursday I mentioned a little bit about MIS and the great job that they've done technologically. HR doing a great job behind the scenes as well. We just had a virtual job fair, and just looking at, if we have openings, what might some of these candidates look like. We want to make sure that when we're able to hire, that we have people that we know, we've vetted, and we've done a good job. So there were over 60 individuals that took part on this on this virtual job fair. So it's pretty neat, but especially a big shout out goes to Lindsay Maxey, Courtney Huffstetler, Mandy Jeter, Donna Ward, and Janet Ward, who all made this happen under the leadership of Dr. Hale. So I just wanted to share that as well. So very, very successful virtual job fair, and a lot of time and effort and energy went into that being a success. And then the last thing I wanted to say is, as you know, we have on-site personnel who are working on site, and then we have individuals such as our teachers are working from the house, but then we also have ed support and folks who are working from the house. And let's just say it's a bus driver who obviously can't drive from the house. One of the things that we did and what HR has done a great job of is we've made sure that we had a number of training videos. And as of this morning, we've assigned over 23,000 Safe Schools trainings for 680 employees, and nearly 10,000 of those have been completed to date, so others are still working through the process, going through the training. And one of the pieces that we hope to see with this training also will be a reduction in workman's comp and other health claims. So this is an opportunity to get a lot of training done for employees as well. So I appreciate the work of HR in this venture. And one last thing, I apologize, and
Yeah,
I do want to
don't
thank
apologize.
Rita. When you go through a staffing pattern and have to take in all different types of information, all different types of input, and then be able to do it, take it in and do it in a responsible manner, with a smile on her face and working with her people the way she does it. And she always loves when she gets when people praise her. So she's over there shaking her head. But I just appreciate the work that she does, which is second to none.
Thank you, Mr. Chambers. So now we'll move down to school board members' announcements and requests for information. And the Honorable Dr. White, I'll start with you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Bryant. And I guess that everyone, all agencies and all governments in the state of Florida and really throughout the nation are concerned about certainly relate to the comments made by board member Mr. Destin on Thursday's workshop, and particularly in reference to budgets. And I've done a little bit of research on that, and I sent some news articles to the superintendent regarding what has been happening in the state of Florida in various governmental agencies and entities concerning preparation for budgets. Some of the articles pertain specifically to Florida school boards and superintendents, and so I thought that my colleagues on the board and certainly the superintendent and his staff might find those articles informative as we head into this new season. But that's really all that I have to say tonight, Mr. Bryant. Thank you.
Thank you. And Dr. White, you did say you presented those copies. Would it be okay for for Jan to send those to us?
Yes, sir. That's what I'll do. I'll
Okay.
send those to Ms. Crawford, and then she can forward it to my colleagues on the school board. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. White. Thank you for all your research, and I know it will be very informative to us. And the Honorable Dr. Kelly, you're up.
Thank you. I do have just a couple of things to say. First of all, we do have a student who is a 17-year-old junior at Niceville, Haley Moriarty, who organized by herself a food drive for those in our area who needed a little help during the pandemic. And I believe I heard that young lady collected more than 1,000 food items and several $100s in cash and checks that she was able to deliver to the Catholic Charities of Northwest Florida and to Niceville Sharing and Caring. So I thought that kind of initiative by one of our juniors was really outstanding. So just wanted to give her a shout out. And as well, I wanted to say kudos to our STEM school for recently using their 3D printers to contribute to the PPE for other organizations during this pandemic time. So that was pretty creative and generous, I thought, of our very own people to do those things. And then lastly, I just might add what fun it's been for me to have made up baskets for our teachers who, as the superintendent said, have vastly changed the way they deliver instruction to our students. And we've had our little quizzes every morning, and we've had a lot of fun, and we've learned some Okaloosa County School District history as well. So that's been a lot of fun, and thank you for allowing me to do that. That's all I have.
Thank you, Dr. Kelly. And now the Honorable Ms. Ivanchek.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that. Again, I'd like to follow the superintendent by saying how much I appreciate our district staff and all that they're doing as we continue through this pandemic and keeping things going. I really do appreciate it. And there's so much we can say about Miss Gowan. I always say she's when you say the name Rita, it's like saying Madonna or Cher or something like that. She can go by one name. She is so famous in our district for all the things she does. So I appreciate that. All you got to say is Rita, and people get it. So that's another thing. Like to talk about too in the community a program where it's called Adopt a Senior, and this is it started on social media where people can adopt a senior this last month of the main school year, and you're just trying to boost those seniors up who obviously will not be having a graduation of the sort that they expected, and I think that's a great program out there, and I'm participating in that and adopting a couple of seniors in our district and just showing them that we do appreciate and understand what they're going through ending up their high school careers. Another thing, and I don't know if you were going to bring this up, Mr. Chairman, but there's a teacher up at Shoal River Middle School, Miss Melanie Rose. She's a 6th grade teacher and also the volleyball coach. And she was given the award of the Golden Apple out of WKRG Channel 5 in Mobile, which is particularly unusual that they would pick someone even out of their state, but it is their viewing area. But they were so impressed with the things that Ms. Rose is doing to get her students to really stay in contact and keep her students engaged online and everything. So I'd like to congratulate Ms. Rose and her principal, Mr. Craig Miller, over there at Shoal River. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Vancheck. And yes, I actually had that down, but I appreciate your kind words about Ms. Rose, and I will echo exactly what you said. She is an awesome teacher, and you're right, WKRG doesn't offer that this far out very much, so it is a big honor for her and for Shoal River Middle School. And with that, the Honorable Mr. Destin.
All right. Thank you, Chairman. And like my classmate, Dr. White, I like to read and research, and being a former history major, I especially like to read history of events to try to get a window into what we may do in our present situations. I just got through reading an article about the 1917 pandemic, and I discussed this with the superintendent before the meeting. According to the article that I read, 20% of the students after 1917, 1918 did not re-enroll in school because the parents were afraid that it was too dangerous. Mr. Horton is our math major, but if we took 20% of our students, that would be around 6,000. We get an average of 7,000 in our funds from the state, and I hope that I'm not too far off, but that comes out to $42 million. And if we want to see Miss Scanlon have to run, we tell her how we're going to deal with a deficit like that. Now, of course, we have an advantage over those folks. They didn't have online education.
Correct.
We do. So I'm hoping that number will go down dramatically, because online education will be something that will be an option. And if Mr. Horton tell me Okaloosa Online, we still get FTE funds for that. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, we do, based on completion of credits. Every Okaloosa Online is our own school district operated virtual program.
It is, and hopefully that will cause that crazy number that I just quoted to not be anywhere near that. But even if it's 25% of 42 million, it's a lot of money. That's laboring under the assumption that the state of Florida will give us the same amounts of FTE funds that they did this year. And I was listening to the president in the conference tonight, and I guess the CDC are coming out with some guidelines on 7 or 8 different industries. Education was one of them, and at least as best I could tell, one of their recommendations was that students eat in their classrooms, not go to their lunchrooms. There'll be a cost associated with that if we have to adopt it. The other one was that we have to social distance in schools. They did not discuss that one by the time I left. but the only way I understand that we can social distance in our schools would be to probably dual session. I hope there's some other way. And I make these points because we're about to go into a realm that we have never experienced. And we have no idea what money we're going to have to work with. Hopefully it will become more clear as we go. But I think the old model of the way we do business is not going to work. And I don't expect y'all to spend days and days and hours trying to predict an unpredictable future. But I know that you will be looking at these issues and trying to help us out. Another question I had is, as we move, hopefully this fall or when they allow us to come back to the model we have now where students come to school, are we going to have an option for the online education that would make a lot of the ones that are going to be scared feel more secure? And what will the state say about that as it pertains to FTE funds? So we just have a lot of questions in front of us, and I want to congratulate y'all. You have been doing your very best to keep up with these changes that we have no idea what they may be, but we have some very, very different things coming down the pike at us as we move forward. So thanks for working on it, but put your thinking caps on, and when we find out what the CDC is going to tell us is a good idea to do in school systems nationwide, then we're going to have to adapt.
Yes,
So,
sir.
Thanks.
Any other comments, Mr.
Oh,
Destin?
that's more than enough, I'm sure.
Thank you, Mr. Destin. Okay, so now we'll move down to, real quick, I do have one other announcement. The gentleman that produces these school board meetings for us, Mr. Paul McNeely, is turning 29 today, so we want to wish him a happy birthday. Of course, we can't show him on screen because he's in the production booth, but happy birthday to Paul, and thank you for, again, all that he does to make us all look good with the new high definition equipment that we're broadcasting in now. So we'll move down to public comment. Is there anybody here to speak? Okay, and we have nobody here to speak. Ms. Gallen, Mr. Horton, anything else? Okay, with that being said, this meeting is adjourned.